Hi there. My name is John Crescenzi. I'm currently a senior computer science student at WGU. I'm also a licensed computer science teacher in the state of Massachusetts, and my previous job was actually teaching high school algebra. I love game development, so today we're going to be working with Scratch and just going ahead and doing a basic lesson on Sprite animation. This lesson would be for ages 7 to 12, their first experience with Scratch and actually working with sprites and loops. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So open up Scratch. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to upload the sprites that we're going to use. So we're going to go to choose sprites and upload sprites. And we have here this Reaper Man. I don't think you can see it. I might just be sharing the browser tab. But I downloaded from a website. I can go to costumes, and now here I'm going to go ahead and upload. Which costume I'm going to upload? Here I have, in my files, I have Reaper Man. So I go ahead and upload this. So we have delete Scratch. Right, so we have Reaper Man. This is the idle blink. So it has him just standing and then blinking. So go ahead and press the events. So we're going to have when the flag is clicked forever. So as long as it's running, the game is running, we're going to go ahead and move to the next costume. And what that's going to do is in our costumes, we go from 1 to 18. And then when it gets to 18, it's going to go back to 1. So this is a forever loop. It keeps going on. And it's going to keep going 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So it gets him to blink while he's standing there. Okay, so now if I press the flag, it's going to continue doing that. Okay, so here we have him. He's just standing there. He's actually blinking pretty fast. So let's go ahead and control that. So we're going to go to control. And let's make it slow down a little bit between the next costume. So maybe not a whole second. That's pretty long. But let's wait 100th of a second. And now we can see it looks a little bit more natural. He doesn't blink as quickly. All right, so now let's go ahead and add some more sprites for the walking. So here I have the walking sprites. There's 18 frames for blinking, and I have 24 sprites for walking. Okay, so we started at 18, and now this is the walking animation. So now you're going to see there's different behavior now. So now he goes through the blinking and he goes through the walking. We want this just to be the idle animation. So we don't want him to walk through on the idle animation. We just want him idling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set a condition that says when I get to the end of this blinking idle animation, we're going to go ahead and end it. We're going to go back to, not end it, but actually go back to the beginning and just loop from 1 through 18 again, because that's what we were doing before. But now it's looping 1 through 42, and we don't want that. We want it to stop before 18. Okay, so that's important. So we're going to go ahead and go to controls, and we're going to say if it's equal to, where's equal to? Okay, here. So if it's equal to frame 18, because that's the end of our blink, if we go here, we have 18 here. This is the idle blinking. And if we go here, now we have walking 0. Remember that loops start at 0. So we're going to go ahead and say if this, and we're doing this based on how it looks. So we're going to go to looks, and we're going to say the costume number. So if the costume number equals 18, let's go back to the start. So the way I'm going to go back to the start is I'm going to switch the costume to not Reaper Man walking, but the blinking 0. Okay, so now if you look, he's only blinking. He's not walking anymore in place. If I remove this, now you can see that he's walking and blinking. So this condition stops it at 18 and then goes back to the beginning of the loop and continues looping forever. So now let's go ahead and add some movement. So I'm going to add a comment. And we're going to say this is move right. Okay, so everything starts with an event. So we're going to go to events. And now instead of when the flag is clicked, that's the beginning. Now we're going to have when something key is placed. So I'm just going to do this on the right arrow because we're moving right. Okay. With the right arrow, we're going to move also to the next costume because we're going to cycle through the sprites. We're going to start that loop. And we're going to start here at 19 and we're going to go to 42. We're going to be looping through that, showing it. Okay. So we also want to move in the direction. So we're going to go to motion, movement, and I want to move 10 steps. Okay, so I press the right arrow and I move 10 steps, but if you see, he's not walking. He does walk at the end, but that's not the behavior we want. It's because both of these next costumes hit before it checks the 18, so it goes to 19, but then it goes back. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if the costume number is less than 19, which we know it's idling, then we're going to go ahead and change it to the walking. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if we go to control and we go to if, actually, we're just going to go ahead, instead of doing this, we're just going to go ahead and duplicate this. Put this over here. Oop, mistake here. Okay, so duplicate this. So now with the costume number, and we're not going to have equals. Instead, I want, this is less than. Okay, so now all the values from 0 to 18, which means that it has to be idling, right? Because we stop at 18. So if it's in this, that's what we're saying. If it's over here in the idle animation, then we're going to go ahead and switch to walking. If I press the right arrow and it's in the idle animation, now I'm going to switch to walking. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if that works. And it does. But now it doesn't switch back. Oh, there we go. It stopped. Okay. But now we also have another issue where if we're here and we're walking, it kind of stutters. Oh, go ahead and drag him back. It kind of stutters. You see that stutter at the end, and that's because it's not looping correctly. It goes ahead and switches to, there's just a judder here. So we got to make sure that it loops correctly. And the way we do that is we're taking account for everything that's less than 18, but we're not taking account for when it equals 42. So remember before we did when it equals 18, that's the end of our blinking animation. Now we're going to do if the costume number, actually I can just go ahead and duplicate this. So if the costume number is equal to, remember 42 is our end, we're not going to go to blinking, but we're going to go back to walking 0 because that's the end of our walking. So now let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, now there's no judder and he can now move. Now let's just say I want to copy this and now I want to move left. So now if I'm moving in the opposite direction, I'm going to want this number to be negative. And let's see if this works. So I'm going to go ahead and move right. Oh, this is still the right arrow. I did not change this yet. And that's the issue why he did not move, but he cycled through the sprites. So now if I hit the left arrow, I'm going to be moving backwards and I'm going to be moving forwards. But I kind of want him to turn around. He's not turning around. I don't know why. And if it has to deal with motion, we're going to go to motion. And now we can see we have movement and we also have turning. But I don't want him to turn, but I do want him to do this, which is point in a direction. So now when the left arrow is pressed, I want to change him pointing instead of to the right. I want him to change pointing to the left. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to the right. And now let's move to the left. Oh, and now there's an issue with this. Now he's upside down. The issue here is we actually have to change where he's pointing when the right arrow is pressed as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to have point in direction here, 90. So let's go ahead and stop and run it again. And now he's going to move this way. And now he's moving the wrong way here. And what we have to do, instead of moving steps, let's go ahead and move in the X and the Y direction. Okay, so now move 10 steps, delete that, and let's go ahead and say change X by 10. And here move negative 10 steps. Let's go ahead and change X by negative 10. Okay, so we're going to stop, restart him wherever he is. Not on the screen. Okay, so what I can do here, because he's not coming back, if this happens to you, we can just go ahead and say at the beginning, just go to 0, 0. And that will help relocate him. There we go. So now we're going to move to the right and we're going to move to the left. He still moves upside down. So now the issue here is that we need to make sure that it has rotation style of left and right when we start. So let's go ahead and do that and do that. And now we can see that it's fixed. The rotation style was just off. I have an extra code block here. Okay, so at the beginning, we set the rotation style to left and right. If we don't, he flips upside down. And we set to 0, 0, so that way when I stop it and I start it, he's right at the middle and we can start from there. Now let's go ahead and move over to our movement controls. These two are exactly the same, except for the values being 90 and 10 and negative 90 and negative 10. And as we see, when we press the left arrow, he moves to the left. And when we press the right arrow, he moves to the right. And when he stops, he then just goes back to his original idle animation. All right, so I hope you guys understood how to cycle through sprites. Sprites are just loops. And there's some few little things about the movement, like setting it left to right so they don't flip upside down, going 0, 0. So that way we can start at the beginning. And also changing the X by 10 and negative 10. So the move along the X axis down here. So we have X over here. As you can see, it's left to right. And also pointing in the direction. So if we click on this, this points to the right. If we point to this points to the left. It's negative 90. So the X to the left is all negative and the X to the right is all positive. And then also the last thing is that we make sure that we are cycling through these sprites at their given values. So here, this is saying if the costume number is less than 18, then we're going to go ahead and change to the walking. This means if he's in the idle animation, these less than 18s mean if he's idling, let's change to walking 0. And then also if it's at 42, is at our last frame, go back to the beginning. And these will continue as long as these arrow keys are pressed, whereas the idle will continue forever. This is a forever loop. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me for my lesson.